Yeah. This is the one that's really important. Is this magnesium ions, and they're charged atoms that formed with a magnesium atom. They lose 2 electrons. In the human body, they are vital for over 300 biochemical reactions, including nerve, muscle functions, energy production, bone strength. As a key intercellular cation, magnesium ions also play roles in regulating enzymes, cell growth, and cardiovascular function. Absolutely critical, these magnesium ions. Can we do anything about that? All right, something to understand is that all chemical reactions require some form of an enzyme. And some form of an enzyme okay, I'm not going to beat this thing to death, but magnesium ions, I think, are extremely important. And they are vital for over 300 biochemical reactions. A lot of it is in the nervous system, muscle function, energy production. All right, now, the enzymes are so critical, I can't overemphasize it. They are the things that do the chemistry in your body. Without them, the chemistry will not happen. And if you don't get that chemistry happening, boom, 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 like I say, in every single cell in the body, there's millions of these ribosomes. They must be popping like popcorn in there. They have to be. And there's there's more bacteria in you than there is you of you, basically. You know, in cell count at least. Now, there's at least 1-to-1 of bacterial cells versus human cells in our body. So they used to think there was a whole lot more, like 10-to-1. You know, so we were mostly bacteria. But bacteria do almost all, well, they do virtually all the chemistry in your body. As far as I'm concerned, that's it. You have to have the right stuff coming into your body, like the different types of foods and so forth, yes. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that you could have all those good foods coming in there, and there's nobody to work on it. They just go through, and usually you're going to have digestive disorders because the bacteria and the enzymes aren't there to break down the foods. They're very, very exotic at breaking down chemistry. All right, just look at this. These are all different molecules, or atoms actually. And they all are combined together this way and that way to make up these molecules. Very, very, very extremely exotic molecule. That is not going to happen by accident. There's no way it's going to happen by accident. And in the human body, they say there's at least 75,000 different ones of those. This is not going to assemble itself. There's going to be a bacteria involved that creates this, and here's how it happens. All right, as I showed you before, inside of every cell, or of every bacterial cell, and they're one cell creatures, single cell, they have a whole bunch of these little things, and they turn into little balls, and they create what they call ribosomes, and they're little round balls. And I mean little. They pop out they must squirt them out like buckets full of them because they're being used all the time. And in every single human cell, there's millions of them. Not just 1 or 2 or 10 or 50, there's millions of them in a single cell. I know I showed you this before. Now let's take it one step further. Now they don't know what happens, but there's a trigger. And a trigger tells that ball of amino acids to pop open into an enzyme, or sometimes into a protein. Enzymes break things. Proteins build things. Simple as that. These are the balls that come out of the bacteria. they unsheath when they're triggered, and they become either an enzyme or in some cases a protein. Depends on what bacteria it came from. So you got to have the bacteria to make your proteins, or your bones won't grow. And you have to have the bacteria to make the enzymes, or you can't break down the stuff to make your bones grow. It's a very complicated process, but it's simple when you think about it. You got to break things down to build things up. So if you don't have the stuff to break down, you're never going to have the stuff to build up. If you don't have the protein that builds the stuff up, you're not going to build it up. It's a bacteria. All your disease starts in the gut. It's bacteria, bacteria, bacteria. Now, there's another facet in this too. They just discovered this layer exists, which is where all this stuff happens. They just discovered. Nobody even knew about it until 2018. And don't forget, we've got all of these little buggers inside there, and there can be millions in one single cell. They can have millions of these ribosomes. And they're popping them like popcorn in there. They must be. Because to do all the chemistry that we're using. And don't forget, there's as many bacterial cells as there is human cells, at least. And there's probably more. And they're single cells. They float around, they do their job, they squirt out the ribosomes collect in the rough endoplasmic reticulum and protect the DNA, and they're used for everything. And for DNA repair and replication. All right, and they just didn't know about this until 2018. Meet your interstitium, newfound organ. This is the fluid-filled highway now. This is where these things are floating around continuously. And this is where they're produced in the bacteria, in the gut, in the intestines and so forth, in small intestine, large intestine, colon, all of that area is absorbing different molecules. And then they're sent through here, through the fluid-filled highway to wherever they have to go. So they're starting to learn more about the human body, but nobody knew about the importance of this layer. Well, they didn't even know the layer existed. So I think it's critical that we get a bacterial database of what is good and what's bad, and figure out why some people are chronically ill. And they're going to be, and a lot of it, I think, could relate to this digestion of magnesium and getting the magnesium ions in the body correctly. Something's going on with the magnesium ions, because it was involved in almost all the diseases, long COVID, and it's also involved in fixing DNA. It's part of the DNA repair mechanism. So it could be a very important thing to look into. So I guess that's how I'm going to wrap that one up. Thank you. Okay, another shocker du jour. 80 years of a mystery about biology and about how things grow, including us. And now I believe that they still have not captured the nuance of enzymes. Enzymes are extremely powerful little chemistry sets. Extremely powerful. But they're only created by bacteria. So if you don't have the bacteria that create those enzymes, you're not going to get them. And the bacteria lives primarily in your gut. That's why Hippocrates, thousands of years ago, said all disease starts in the gut. And he was right. Now, I'm not sure they have a handle on this yet. Let's see what they have to say. I've looked it over, and I have some things to say about it, and let's talk about it. Okay, this is about scientists uncover a basic principle, shows how higher nutrient levels change the pace of cell growth, revealing a universal rule applies to microbial growth. Now, This is a research group of scientists from Earth Life Sciences Institute of Science, Tokyo, Japan, has uncovered a new biological principle that mathematically describes why growth slows down as nutrient levels rise, a pattern known as the law of diminishing returns. This mathematically thing, I don't like that, and I don't like computer models. Life does not work that way. Life works on enzymes. All right, enzymes are created by bacteria. That's where they come from. The central role of enzymes is biological catalysts, and this is in the cells. Enzymes accelerate the rate of reactions by well over 1,000,000-fold, well over that. So reactions that would take years in the absence of a catalyst can occur in milliseconds. Some of them have them as up to millions and millions of years worth of chemistry within a microsecond. And they are just unbelievable. However, if you don't have the bacteria, you don't get the enzyme. You don't get the enzyme, you don't get that chemistry. You don't get that chemistry, something's going to not work right, probably. All right, this is important to understand. On any given day, our DNA takes a lot of damage in a single cell. In one single cell, as many as 10,000 errors, which they call lesions, can occur in the chromosomes. In 24 hours, 10,000. They have to be fixed. The only way you can fix them is with enzymes. Enzymes will be involved, guaranteed. And there's probably a lot of backup enzymes so that you don't need specific enzymes to do every single specific repair. But if you have a group of them missing, you're in trouble. And even if you have one of them missing, you could be in trouble. There's so many enzymes, it's just unbelievable. There's 75,000 at least. And each one of them is designated to do almost just a specific task. Otherwise, they affect other things. That's why, you go in and you get drugs from a pharmacy or whatever, and they say, well, are you going to be side effects? Well, why? Well, it's going to attack something else too. It's attacking this, and maybe it'll attack that too at the same time. They don't know. But an enzyme made from your body, totally different. It says, I attack this one. I don't bother with those. No. This is the one. And that's what a good enzyme does. And a good enzyme is created from a good bacteria that's in your body. Okay, for 80 years now, they've had this equation developed in the 1940s, describes microbial growth responding to increased nutrients. And they say it predicts that the growth rise with nutrient availability eventually levels off. Yes, you can only have, it's not going to just pop into Neverland. Obviously, it's going to do what it can. However, every one of these, every reaction, every single reaction, every chemical process requires an enzyme, 100% of them. All right, so they are saying the equation predicts that the growth rises with nutrient availability, eventually levels off. That's obvious. We know that. Even in the best circumstances, that's what's going to happen. And when something's not right, it's not going to grow. Let's talk plants. It's based on the assumption that only a single nutrient or reaction limits growth. So they say, if you got all your stuff you need, you're going to grow. If you don't, you're not going to grow. In reality, it relies on thousands of chemical processes that draw from the same limited pool of resources. So you get what you get in your body or in a plant or whatever it is. And then from that, you have to turn it into something that your body can use. And that's what's called a chemical process. And every single 100%, every single thing that happens in your body, 100% chemical processes requires an enzyme, 100%. All right, I just want to be sure that I didn't overstate something. When I say that chemical processes, every single one requires an enzyme, and that's basically true. There are certain things where there's a difference in polarities of things that create a chemical process, gradients and so forth, a little bit different, but that's like breathing and things of that nature. But anytime you're working with atoms and a breakdown or whatever happens to them, that chemical process, that requires an enzyme. They just cannot happen fast enough without the enzyme. And without the enzyme, without the bacteria to create the enzyme, you don't get the enzyme. And here's the way they work right here. It's very simple. You have a bacteria. It creates a ball of a chain of little particles called proteins, amino acids. They come out of here and then they ball up into what's called a ribosome. All right, actually the ribosome spits out of here, but this is what it is. And that ribosome can do it can do everything in your body that's done, basically. It can come in and join in with your DNA by using the mRNA strand, cuts in with the uracil and locks in a new program in your DNA, which is just nothing more than a program. It's just all it is. DNA is a program. So you have genetic chunks. They call them genes. Everybody's heard of them. And if that gene doesn't work right, then your finger doesn't grow or something. There's a set of programs in here that are actually construction codes, how your body is built. And all of that stuff is coded in DNA. And the DNA can be affected by viruses and other attacks. Well, let's go with viruses, because they can cut in and overtake the DNA and replace a piece of the DNA, so your gene doesn't function correctly. It's not always the gene is defective. It can be turned on or off, or a lot of things can happen to the gene, but the gene should be able to replace itself, be able to repair itself. All right, we have DNA repair codes built into our body, and if that's working correctly, it'll fix those codes and repair the DNA. It's all chemistry, but you have to have the right enzymes to do the right chemistry. In my mind, it's enzymes we got to work on, and that means working on the bacteria, because that's where the enzymes come from. There are so many enzymes in your body you just can't even possibly imagine. You see these ribosomes? Before I showed you that they go out and they can go in and cut back into the DNA and fix the DNA. That's one thing they do. The other things they do is they come out and they make all kinds of things. And they flow through these layers in your body, which is primarily the fluid-filled highway. And this is where these bacteria are floating all through here and squirting ribosomes. They must be just squirting them out in gobs, because a human cell, or an animal cell, and let's take a human cell, these are the ribosomes, and they're just everywhere. They're just everywhere. There can be over 1 million in one single human cell, and all the other stuff here, because there's all kind of little organelles in here, this Golgi apparatus and the mitochondria and all kinds of things. Now, here's where your DNA is. This is the protected spot. Here You see this rough endoplasmic reticulum? That's what this is. It's almost like a labyrinth to get through, to get to the gate, to get into where the DNA is in here. And we've been looking into some things. I got a few other people I've been working with, and it appears that what is it? Not the magnesium. Yeah, magnesium. Magnesium ions are the ones that seem to be missing to be able to repair the DNA. That gives people long illnesses, and I think hold on one second, let me be sure.